dans le monde entier la révolution soudanaise et que nous allons entendre maintenant. Aux côtés des jeunes qui continuent de porter les idées,
الشباب
certains sont parmi nous aujourd'hui.
البعض منا اليوم
Il y a tous ceux qui ont donné leur
فينبع ويثمر.
vie.
الذين أوحوا قصيدة عن الصالحة التي نشرت في العالم الثورة السودانية والتي سنسمعها لاحقا. إلى جانب الشباب والشابات الذين لا يزالون يحملون أفكار الثورة وبعضهم معنا اليوم، هناك أيضا كل الذين أعطوا حياتهم بذلوا حياتهم خلال ثورة ديسمبر كالذين سقطوا في الثورات التي سبقت. هناك أيضا الآلاف من الدارفوريين ومن الكردفانيين ومن السودانيين من كل المناطق والمحافظات السودانية الذي كانوا ضحايا النزاعات التي مزقت بلدكم. ولهؤلاء الضحايا ولكل الأبطال الذين بذلوا حياتهم ليتمتع السودان بالحرية والعدالة، أود أن أشيد بذكرى كل هؤلاء الضحايا باسم فرنسا وباسم كل الدول الشريكة المجتمعة معنا اليوم وهي إلى جانب الشعب السوداني. وفكرة خاصة بعد ظهر اليوم للشاب هزاع عز الدين الذي قضى في أحداث سبتمبر أيلول 2013، وأود أن نحيي بكل احترام والدته أم هزاع التي أصبحت رمز شجاعة النساء السودانيات. إن ثورة
December revolution wasn't the first of its kind in the history. On the contrary, it has got its principles and all of the conflicts that your people started for the sake of the dignity and stability in the whole world. Also, we have other conflicts and revolutions that got the same name of the great patriotism and same revolutions that got those kind of slogans and the literature compositions that you have made it clear to the whole world that it is possible that we can win the world due by the role of art, starting with the October victory that's being expressed by Muhammad Nakid Ibrahim, who have composed these lyrics by the name of your October. The whole harvests have got its hopes and prosperous harvests, and also the song by Muhammad Saturi, who's also been sang by Warzi. The morning has just come with no prison and prisoners, and we have got this great firm covering your treacheries. And then in 1985 revolution with the poem of Mahgoub Sharif sang by Al-Wardi. Oh, people that being torn by your revolution. Today, you have chosen to collect all of your powers, civilian and military, to make your revolution an actual success. So with the support of the African Union, I would like to pay tribute to the great and pivotal and firm role that's being played by it. And this also is a very distinguished symbol of the transition phase of the Sudanese, and also demonstrates the combating of the challenges and also one of the means of the stability that wants to be able to establish in Sudan has been proven for the strength, and despite all of the challenges, we still have been able to get these accomplishments and achievements since the collapse of the previous regime. And unprecedentedly, we would like to stand shoulder to shoulder to make it an actual success. The transitional phase is not just a regime that comes after the previous, but again, it's an actual meet for the hopes of the youth to collect all of the efforts for building their future. Freedom, stability, and justice. Freedom to women just like men. peace for everyone on the land, exceeding all of the bias and all of the isolations, exceeding all of the racial and the cultural reasons for the both genders, for therefore just like Nile Basin country, just like Nubia or the Eastern Mediterranean. This is exactly the approach you selected, and your revolution is very distinguished with the unprecedented role played by your great women who have been expressed by Muhammad Wardi that Sudan is there due to the great role played by the great women. Again, this revolution is very exceptional because for the first time in the region it has been able to collapse this regime that was using the women to just hide their bad deeds. The Sudanese have demonstrated that if Muslims are not, the shield of freedom and justice is still stronger, and no one can be exploited afterwards. This is the approach you selected. The peace of the patriots, brave soldiers that being signed on October with the previous enemies that have become now partners, contributing with and participating in this transitional phase with lots of hopes. Now, not talking about the partners of Sudan to tell you what to do, but again, I want on behalf of all of those collaborating with us today in Paris that we support comprehensively all of those who would like to take the burden on their shoulders to prove the success of the Sudanese transitional phase. This transitional phase should make it well by its end to organize free elections, transparent elections that can lead to have the civilian government with full legislation. I understand, Your Excellency, the Prime Minister, the head of state, that you work very bravely on the approach with no hesitation. And I know that this is the approach that you look forward with your Sudanese youth to reach. And for the sake of continuing on this horizon, it's very important to make sure that all of the partners adapt all of the peace charter, and all of the rest should also join these initiatives. All of those movements that still have convoys, they should be returned back just rapidly as much as possible for the sake of the security of this region, which is your security and also our security on the western and the eastern borders of the Mediterranean. And moreover, we should continue in the economic reformers to continue in guiding the lines for this transitional phase for mitigating the debts of Sudan, which is also the first milestone of those reforms. And we should also state that Sudan should get back to its the international community with such a dignified role. But this transitional phase is very firm, and it also puts firmly all of the commitments of the international community to stand together with yourself, because you've been so brave to stand bravely and firmly to win this freedom and to execute those reforms. Subsequently, all of the Sudanese, on top of which the youth of both genders that we have here today, representing your future and also some part of our future, could also lead us to make sure that freedom, justice, and peace wouldn't be just literal words, but it will be an actual tangible fact on the land. France is very proud to be the backend of Sudan, to help Sudan to get into the family of the UN and to be here today in the shorter months. Interface this place where we have the milestones of the Sudanese transitional milestones. And today we have the eyes of the whole world. Thank you. In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most compassionate, Your Excellency, Mr. Emmanuel Macron, Your Excellencies, the Prime Ministers, the ambassadors, the head of states, the distinguished attendees with all of your great roles, peace be with all of you. At the beginning, allow me to pay tribute to France for the great organizing of this important summit and for the great support that France and the whole organizers for this since the beginning of 2018 till this moment with the emergence of the Sudanese revolution. This revolution that played the great symbol of in the humanitarian history, especially in our region, and particularly speaking where the Sudanese people have declared great unprecedented brave in combating this dictatorial regime that have just using the raw slogans and have taken the freedom of the Sudanese people. And in December 2018, for more than 8 months, the launching of the revolution where the Sudanese people have been confronting all of the suppression phases from the direct torture and killing till we've got the massacre of the 9th July, where the incidents have been one of the worst incidents against human rights in the history of Sudan. And despite this bloody event, which have been targeting the peaceful approach from the signing of the agreement between the military bodies and the civilian people, those provisions that got the slogan of the immortal revolution, freedom, justice and freedom, to start a new phase which is targeting executing the principles of the revolution as a brief phase for the democracy that can stand for long and can live for long term in this country that's been facing for quite a long time the corruption. And now, after just 2 years of the transitional phase, the transitional phase have been able to adapt some of the files, on top of which, by signing Juba peace agreement and by executing a number of economic reforms, also Sudanese have been able to get out of the isolation, which comes also with the fragile stance with some other files, especially those related to the protection of the civilians and the proliferation of killing in the corners of Sudan. And again, we still have the scene which is very complicated between one stance to another, between the past and the new, between the wise and the bad deeds, between light and darkness, between despair and hopes. And eventually it's the spring of hopes, despite all of the suffer that the Sudanese people have been facing until this moment, especially with the economic collapse and all of this economic deterioration that have been adding lots of tens of billions of debt on the shoulders of the state. But again, we still have the hope that these great hopes that we will be able to, we wish that from all of you and all of our free people throughout the world to help us throughout all of the shapes of support and financing to make sure that it could be an actual reality that can enable and empower the Sudan state to overcome those crisis and to be able to continue in the prosperous and fruitful future. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me from here to send my great greetings to all of the people that are fighting very bravely and firmly for the democracy and peace, on top of which is the Palestinian people who are usually confronting the occupation forces till this moment to make sure that they will regain their land. And these people who have just lost more than 700 patriots who've been standing very bravely in front of those military aggressions that have been trying to take over and to threaten all of those stability, and also all of those UN democratic organizations throughout the whole world witnessing what's happening, to have a newborn democracy which has been taken off. And again, the least to mention that it is very fragile till this moment from all of the UN organizations and all of democratic organizations throughout the whole world who are witnessing very directly the newborn of the democracy in the world which is being taken off. Ladies and gentlemen, Sudan today had a real window of opportunity, a historical opportunity after a great revolution to build long-standing democratic peace and long-standing state of law that can get all of its capabilities demonstrated, on top of which is the Sudanese human being and the capabilities of our youth and their infinite skills. So the actual spring of hope to our state is this actual human being, which is by their wise and efforts we can be able to achieve the impossible one more time. Thanks to France for this great endeavor that's been proposed that we will never forget, and also thanks to all of attendees from the different countries, brotherhood countries, and peace be upon all of you. In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most compassionate, the head of the President of France, Emmanuel Macron, ladies and gentlemen, heads of state, the prime ministers, and your excellencies, the ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen, the delegations of the international organizations, the distinguished attendees with all of your preserved titles. I would like to start with expressing thanks for the French government, out of which with His Excellency the President Emmanuel Macron, for the great organizing that can help Sudan as the state, youth and people to move forward and to work as the security beacon that can confront all of the challenges that we have, particularly the economics. And I'd like to also express condolences to all of those who lost their lives and souls by the end the martyrs of Ramadan 2021. I would like also to pay tribute to the Sudanese women who have been able to prove their stance and strong stances for the sake of peace and stability. Also, I'd like to pay tribute to the Sudanese people, the patriots of our youth who have spared no hesitation to just surrender in front of these democratic, and we've been able to prove this for all of this been trying to kill our democratic and our will. We've been able to prove this in October 1964 and also in April 1985 and one more time in December 2018. With our peaceful revolutions until this moment, as youth, we are still fully capable to get one more time on the arena and to spare no efforts for the sake of freedom and justice. December revolution is an actual personification for no centralization for geography or for generations. We are the pillars of this revolution, and we are the future of the leaders. We insist on building the future of the state that we would like to have. We haven't reached to what we want yet. We still have the framework of this shaping of the country. We still have the old shapes, and we still have lots of non-firm stances, and that's how we found that there should be a transitional period, which is again not just moving from one regime to another, but it should be transitional in all of the fields and domains for the government to be in actual civilization, also to move from the the cheap blood shedding into the actual human rights, also to move towards the wise and the sovereignty of law and the freedom of ideologies, also to move from the male regimes into the equal gender for both genders. And we still have got this incomprehensive regime. We still have some other steps that we wouldn't be able to continue with if we haven't got the actual support and if we haven't got the obstacle just removed, especially the inflation and the debts that have been an actual burden on the shoulders of the Sudanese citizens. The Sudanese debt haven't been reflected on any of the shapes of the economy, and we have got inherited a great and huge debt that we never thought to have. And on the same time, we, the youth, still have the hope. We look forward to have the actual means of life that will help us and wouldn't let us just migrate to other countries, and will help us not to sink into the actual low degrees of the Mediterranean seas. All of the services that we have, from the infrastructure, the healthcare, the education, the financial capitals, all of the opportunities for investments, and all of those, we have been the decades of those revolutionary, and we are also the actual creators of the future. Sudan is an actual strategic partner to lots of countries throughout the whole world, providing lots of the means of manufacturing and raw materials that help those countries to have the actual industrial development. So it is the time to be also strategic partners, participating in the sustainable development of Sudan, and also to help in the sustainable development of its products, and to push the economics forward, and to provide better windows opportunities to our people and youth, just as combating the environment and as supporter and promoter to the climate change crisis, and also with the increase of the proposal to the world and the lots of hopes of investment, we still have increase of the worries according for the saving and preserving the environment. This is how we come to the sustainable development goals, along with adhering to the environmental and the green industrial principles, and to adhere to the criteria of the environment for the quality of the soil, water, and air. Those are the assets of the whole people, also for our common generations. At the end of my speech, special thanks for the organizations in Khartoum for the facilitation of for getting our voices heard. Thanks to all of you. Your Excellency, the President of France, Mr. Emmanuel Macron, the Prime Minister, Dr. Abdallah Hamdok, Your Excellencies with your different excellent distinguished titles, your ladies and gentlemen, our distinguished attendees. At the beginning, I would like to thank the French government and embassy in Khartoum for calling youth from all genders and exerting these great efforts for the success of this summit. Great tribute to our martyrs.
عثمان أحمد ومدثر
مختار
الذين قادرونا
have
منذ أسبوع في الذكرى الثانية لفض اعتصام القيادة العامة في نفس ذات
the revolution, the same exact time and place.
لروحهم الرحمة والمغفرة
Condolences and may they rest in peace.
التحية لشابات
I would like to pay tribute to the youth of December Peaceful Revolution in the streets of revolution, and our country who have been usually calling for the right and peace and freedom.
التحية لكنداكات وميارين بلادي
اللائي ضربنا أروع أمثلة البسالة
والشجاعة وسطرنا أسمائهن
dignity, who have got their names written with the spark of light in one of those epics to get the will of their people towards freedom since 7,000 years till this moment. And we are just like our ancestors. We would like to have the great and full support and solidarity to the Palestinian people who are calling for their rights, and for all of those calling for against the occupation. All of the women that we got throughout the whole villages of Sudan calling and helping with our revolution that started with the hashtag Sudanese cities are against the bloodshedding and all of the bad deeds from the previous regime. And we got the choice of people who've been able to get what they want, to get this regime collapsed. And again, we've got the renewal of those calls to have peace, freedom, and transparency, civilian, the decision of our people. This was our decision to get our dignified life, just like others, our counterparts, that we deserve. Sudan deserves nothing but to live with dignified life and respectful rights. And we got, in that regard, the slogan, civilian. And all of the cities of Sudan have got all of the corners with this slogan in Sudanese in our countries. We understand that our journey that our youth have been playing is still long to build and construct the country of peace, security, and transparency. And we have those detractors that just have different shapes of negativity, but again with the strong belief and the solidarity and the support of the international community, we will be able to get to fulfill the premise that we have bonded among ourselves and our martyrs. And this have been usually the actual stance towards all of our stances, and all of those who can remember this hashtag that's being spread throughout the whole world, Blue for Sudan. The blue color was the actual promoter for the revolution against the massacre of the general regime. And here, one more time, we open the channels with the whole world for the sake of the constructions and building capacities of human people. Here, you will get acquainted with the new human people. And I'd like to express my sincere wishes for the success of all of the partners. And let's again remember the spirit of the Sudanese revolution and the land of the revolution in this poem. Our generations understand that all of those you've been witnessing, where the soldiers were there getting their slogans and their weapons, killing us under the name of religion, imprisoning us under the name of religion. And the religion is just very innocent from their deeds. Religion is just saying that you should stop from confronting the civilians. The religion just saying that if you have innocent people, you should stop your aggressions. Those have been just prisoning us from our blood shed on the lands. We have been able not to stop silence from the torture that we have in our parts and bodies. And our sons and generations just burying our bodies once our youth being a revival. And I can see them from my lungs stating that we have got Mona and Majdi. They are still alive, just wearing this green linen. And still I'm torn apart. I'm just silent and witnessing the stance. And if I'm afraid from killing, I still have the patriots who can just have their souls on land for freeing these prisons. Oh, my mother, those prisons which is full of our patriots. We have those who betrayed us, those who have been betraying our soldiers, betraying our patriots. And if you are afraid to be killed, you will have those patriots. You can see them just defending yourself. Those bullets once being shot, just once those bullets being shot to get our rights, just like this, just like these weapons that once had been spread that wouldn't stop us from braving and defending our people, our sons. The bullets wouldn't kill us. The bullets wouldn't keep us silent.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most compassionate. Your Excellency, Mr. Emmanuel Macron, the President of France, Your Excellencies, the Head of State, Your Excellencies, the delegations of the organizations, the funds of the international organizations, ladies and gentlemen, the distinguished attendees, peace be with all of you. Allow me in the beginning to pay tribute to His Excellency, Mr. Macron, on behalf of the Sudanese people, and to express the great appreciation for your great initiative for calling us for this great summit, which is very vital, that give a great window of opportunity for Sudanese that can start being demonstrated in the whole world to resume back the actual involvement and integration of the community, of the international community, with the message of peace and collaboration. For 30 years, we've been isolated, just subject to penalties. And I also would like to pay tribute to all of the head of states of the organizations, regional, international organizations, for their participation in this vital conference that demonstrate their support for the transitional phase in Sudan, and that they are committed to preserve the prosperous rights of the whole world peoples. Your Excellency, we feel so honored with your great support and enhance to the Sudanese transitional phase and this initiative for the conduction of this summit, and to have this support financing conference for the African economics demonstrates your pivotal role in the international community as an actual effective power called for mitigating the burdens of the world countries and to support our approach politically and militarily. And we will keep this in our minds, in people as states, in our hearts, in our minds, in people and youth that are facing a very important phase throughout this transitional phase. Ladies and gentlemen, the Sudanese revolution in December 2018 has played an actual and exceptional role in its patriotism, and its role that's been played by the youth in both genders with no bias for the armed forces of the Sudanese is a belief in the importance of the change of the ruling regime, and all of it's been represented in terms of dictatorship. And we got the martyrs and the massacre, which is symbolizing a very important step demonstrating the confidence of people in their military bodies, and we are so honored with this role that's being played by the Sudanese armed forces, which is also again adding another different dimension for the exceptional revolution we got in Sudan and its actual successful story. This is how the Sudanese armed forces will continue the actual protector and defender for the revolution, and will continue within the components of the transitional phase, just fulfilling their constitutional role for the security of Sudan and all of the bodies and methods. Ladies and gentlemen, the change that we got by the great epic revolutionary in Sudan, which is an actual historical change towards democratic world and to get exposed to the external world, and we are now on the right track for resuming back to the international systems for the conduction of the actual reforms that included, for instance, the law economics and the justice reforms, the economic reforms, in addition to providing the freedom and also the internal peace and signing the peace agreements in Juba, with lots of other also opposing movements, and also to move towards other partners, which has been an actual harvest for the partnership between the civilian and military bodies, which played the actual role in the partnership of this transitional phase, which has now been expanded just after the addition and enjoining of Juba peace groups. This, which is concentrating on the tackling the actual root cause, and those tackling that's now confronting lots of challenges because of the non-availability of the assets and the methods and the efforts to get for those migrants and refugees, and the security organizing efforts related to the resuming back of the involvement and integration. We do look forward to the enhancing and supporting of the international community so we could be able to build and establish security and peace in Sudan for long-standing. Ladies and gentlemen, Sudan, with all of the contributions, is capable to be one of the leaders in the international community, and I'd like here to reiterate that we are in the sovereign body. We've been usually supporting all of the efforts throughout our commitment and our communication directly with the heads of the states of our countryly and brotherly countries, especially with the African brotherly countries, and we played a great role with the executing government, which has proven the importance of joining the peace initiatives in the Middle East and supporting all of the initiatives that can get its benefits to what happened on the Sudanese lands, for the Sudanese people to have their own decision and to be an actual beacon for the security and stability of the region. We would like to reiterate that the transitional phase government should be committed to all of the charters and all of the international agreements and all of the human rights, and also support all of the principles of the friendship and contribution, and not to get into interfering in the other countries. In addition to the effective collaboration in regionally and internationally initiatives, and not to violate any of the neighborhood countries' government agreements. I'd like also to reiterate that Sudan is a promoter to the international and regional institutional agreements, and which is a call for putting an end for our conflicts, especially with Ethiopia in the Renaissance Dam case, which is again against the international laws. And I would like also to confirm that Sudan is very committed for its sovereignty of lands, and to also be committed with the principles of the international and regional collaboration, especially for those threatening of the methods like the terrorism confronting methods and efforts. Your Excellencies, our partnership just after the success of the revolution is going on the right track firmly to have also execution of the slogans of the revolution, and to confirm that by the end of the transitional phase we'll get to our goals. and the transitional phase, which is having a great impact on the achievements despite all of the efforts that are being played by the transitional phase for tackling the economic root cause and to empower the economy to be revived. But still, all of those repercussions have got their own impacts on the citizens that suffer quite a lot from getting their own standard methods of life. But again, we will be able to help to get it moved from developing country filled with debt into one of those countries standing in the queue of the developed countries. And all of those efforts, along with the support by the international communities, that we do look forward to have a part of these efforts throughout this conference, will help us eventually to continue working on the same track, which will help us to be in the African continent in the right place. And I'm so confident that this will help us to get the change that's been calling for throughout the slogans of the revolutions, which were peace, security, and transparency. And we will spare no efforts to make sure that those slogans will be actual adapted role models, to make sure that our Sudanese people will get to what they deserve, as dignified, respectful life that they deserve, and that they have provided lots to have. And again, one more time, just allow me to pay tribute to His Excellency, the President Macron, and for the France's great hospitality and the great efforts for organizing and the success of this summit. I also would like to pay tribute to all of your excellencies, the head of states, the delegations of the international organizations and the funds, for the great participation and for your great support to Sudan, and peace be upon all of you.
Excellencies, Head of State and Government, Honorable Heads and Representatives of regional and international organizations and funds, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It is indeed
unquestionably, it's a great honor to me to stand here with you, calling these great people that we have here from very exceptional titles and positions. And just let me firstly to express my great appreciation and thanks to His Excellency the French President Emmanuel Macron, and to also Sudan state and people, and to also French people for hosting this very important historical conference to enhance Sudan throughout 2 years. The Sudanese people have got in millions to the streets, have been into the streets and the roads, and they've been revoluting against this dictatorship that were ruling them. And they have been able to get their revolution a success, which was an actual pivotal mark in the history of Sudan. And as a result, this glorious revolution conducted by Sudanese in December 2018, the dictatorship have been eliminated, and now the Sudanese people pursue to get the adoption of the democracy and the sovereignty of the law, and to overcome all of the political and military challenges that they face currently in such a transitional phase. And also we're here today to prove that the Sudanese people are capable enough to survive and to build their democracy. And unquestionably, the Sudanese people have proven that they didn't just want to eliminate dictatorship, but on the contrary, they also wanted to deepen the reforms, the democratic reforms and the economic reforms within this transitional phase. We do have a prosperous plan that's being established by the Sudanese people, and they have been able to get the quantum leap towards the achievement of this prosperity. There are some targets that the Sudanese people have put on their priorities, which were freedom, peace, and social justice. Unquestionably, the Sudanese people exerting great efforts in different domains to overcome corruption and to overcome the economic crisis and to conduct reforms in the human rights and justice domains, as well as within the framework of the comprehensive efforts, and also to improve the services of the civilian government and also the human rights services, in addition to the public freedom and the equity of genders, in addition to the fact that the Sudanese people also pursue to enhance the institutions of the transitional phase, just like the transitional council. And here today, and as you all know, that the COVID-19 pandemic hasn't left a country without just being very deeply and profoundly affecting it. Such was the case in Sudan, and that's how we're trying to confront this crisis emerging from this pandemic. And we look forward to eliminate the violation of the freedom and the providing all of the human rights, the assets and the standard means of life, and all of those elements that we should work on to get improved and to get developed for the sake of putting an end to those conflicts that being emerged throughout the whole corners of the state. And undoubtedly, the negotiations were always the actual means to put an end to those repercussions and to end those controversies. And in October 2020, we signed the Juba Agreement, and we commenced working on the principles of this agreement, and we are fully aware that building peace wouldn't just rely on signing an agreement, but again, it should, and it's a must, that there should be actual efforts exerted to fulfill this peace and to transfer this signed agreement from just a paper agreement to be a tangible fact on the ground. And we hope, and we are so hopeful that we will be able to get to achievements. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the transitional government has put as its first priority a number of priorities that work forward to achieve for the reforming of the amendments of the laws and the public laws, in addition to the also the criminal laws, in addition to amendment and reforming the institutions that work on the execution and implementation of laws and establishing the support of human rights that have become a part of integrated part of the regime in Sudan, and also the economic reforms as the transitional phase, looking forward to get into the economic prosperity as we inherited the actual legacy of economy very enriched with lots of economic debts that we should confront if we would like for our country to stand one more time and to revive this. Hence, we work on reaching this, and the stance that we have here, which is unprecedented stance, especially after the COVID pandemic. Therefore, all of those demonstrations that we have, they just hide the political, social, and economic impacts that we should work on tackling and filling those gaps. So we have to commence that our first priority to tackle this increased economic crisis. And Sudan has already put on top of its priorities, and again it was just removed from the list of the countries that should be supported. But again, we call upon all of the parties and all of the partners, stakeholders, to help and to support Sudan in that regards. So Sudan to be just has been removed from the list of the countries supporting terrorism. So we call here upon all of the stakeholders and international partners to help Sudan to get out of this economic crisis and to implement this transparency and to rearrange the priorities in terms of the public expenses, but also the economic reform, which also we work on just lifting all of the economic hardships from the burdens of our Sudanese citizens. And we've taken a number of procedures that already been taken, already been started to enforce by having the collaboration of our stakeholders. And we do look forward to getting more of those achievements, and that achieving the economic development, which will help providing lots of job opportunities to our Sudanese people. So we have to provide the lots of opportunities to our youth of the Sudanese people, and instead of just letting them get in their risky immigration to other countries in the European country, in the African continent, throughout the Mediterranean Sea. So here today, throughout this summit, we express and we provide we express our appreciation to holding such conference, and we reiterating that with your support we will be able to freeing our economy from what's being added to it from debts and hardships and boundaries. And we are still working to also would like to take and exploit this chance to express our appreciation for the international institutions, and particularly to France, for the great support and aids they provided to us, which can help us to reach to what we look forward to have. Meanwhile, also to Ireland and the UK and all of other countries for the great steps that being taken that we wouldn't be able to reach without those steps. We're so appreciating all of the stakeholders in the region, the brotherly countries, for all the shapes of aids and support. Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to also pay great tribute to the French president for his great solidarity. And one more time, I would like to express my sincere appreciation for His Excellency Emmanuel Macron, the French President, for this great support that he paid to Sudan. And one more time, I would like also to express my appreciation and thanks to all of the heads of the state in the region and all of the international institutions and regional organizations. And at the end, we just have inherited in Sudan the huge debt legacy in our country, which is that for 30 years we have been suffering quite tremendously. We've been facing huge challenges and hardships, and hence we should confront those hardships, and we should work together for achieving the sustainable peace on the land and to reach what our people look forward to have from hopes and prosperity.
رؤساء الحكومات أشكركم شكرا جزيلا جميعا.
L'avoir fait pour vous deux. Remercier Mohamed, Nisrine et Allah qui ont porté les voix de la société civile et de la jeunesse soudanaise avec beaucoup d'émotion et d'inspiration. Pour conclure cette conversation, nous allons maintenant entendre
speeches that were delivered during this opening session. I thank also all the civil society organizations. And I would like to thank Mr. Moussa Faki, although he is not here with us from the African Union, yet he has sent me a message. And now let's listen to the speech of the Secretary General of the United Nations to the conference. I commend the Sudanese government for attending this conference. Sudan and the Sudanese people have suffered a lot, so it's prime time to leverage this and to put an end to this suffering and to work together on enhancing the Sudanese institutions. This conference is a part and parcel of the efforts exerted by the United Nations in supporting Sudan. It's the right of Sudan to enjoy strong independent institutions playing their effective role and to achieve the aspirations of its people. So we expect the partners and the friends of Sudan to provide assistance to it so as to achieve stability in the country. Of course, there are a number of challenges facing Sudan in achieving peace and security. So we need to help Sudan to get out of its economic difficulties, and we need to support also the private sector so that Sudan would be qualified and eligible to receive assistance from regional and international organizations. Sudan is going through historical economic transformation, and I'm calling upon all institutions to contribute to supporting Sudan and helping with this transition. Thank you very much. Your Excellencies, the heads of states and governments, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, brothers and colleagues from Sudan, let me at the outset express thanks to His Excellency the French President Macron for selecting this important conference and for selecting France and its capital, Paris, to be the headquarters for hosting this conference. There are a number of historical relations between France and Africa and African countries and Sudan, of course. So there is a strong historical close relationship regarding the value and the history. And this conference is considered to be a very important one because it is trying to discuss the solution. It is working on coming up with these solutions to settle the Sudanese debts. This is a very good initiative on part of the state of France. And we are looking forward to this conference supporting the transition period in Sudan. And we wish that all the partners would work together to support Sudan during this historical moment it is going through. There are a number of challenges facing the Sudanese government, and yet Sudan has a lot of priorities and a lot of potentials. So we need to focus on the great volume of investments in Sudan. It's more than $4 million US invested in Sudan by different African partners, and this is an opportunity to build upon it. There is also debts that is about 4.5 billion euros. So we need to support the economic conditions in Sudan as it needs more support and assistance. And we need to come up with solutions to support Sudan during this phase, as well as helping it in developing its infrastructure. Chad, Libya, and other countries are going through this period to support Sudan, as Sudan is a brotherly country and it is very important. And we need to put aside all the negative impacts Sudan has incurred due to the difficulties, and we need to come up with logical, effective solutions to give hopes. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi and Mr. Hamdouk, Mr. Abdulrahman Burhan are all discussing these very important issues. And there is also the Prime Minister of Sudan, who are giving us a lot of hope with the proposals and the suggestions they are making for helping Sudan. We need all to work on this to meet the aspirations and the needs of the Sudanese and the African peoples in general. We need to show international solidarity to come up with these solutions. And we need also to go on supporting Sudan. Our participation in this conference signifies our solidarity and our support, and also the participation of the United Nations proves that we are all determined on finding more investment opportunities in Sudan, as well as introducing more democratic solutions to all the African nations. You know, Your Excellency President Macron, that there are a lot of investments between France and African countries that reaches about 5 billion euros. You know very well, ladies and gentlemen, that we are giving due concern to developing the economy and to build better relations between the African countries, and to also find an international initiative to settle the debts of Sudan. All international organizations are participating also in this initiative. Ladies and gentlemen, this conference, the Conference of Supporting the Transition Period in Sudan, would help us come up with excellent outcomes for Sudan. Thanks to the participation of everyone, we will all provide a suitable environment to introduce economic reforms in Sudan. We are also going to work on encouraging the French companies to invest in Sudan and to build a better future for Sudan and establish the infrastructure in Sudan. All ladies and gentlemen are playing a very important role in Sudan, and especially the young officials and the young ministers in Sudan are creating now a hopeful future for Sudan. The international community is also supporting this transition period in Sudan. And I think that the main message for this conference is that we are supporting the transformation and all transformations in Sudan, and achieve also all African interests in addition to supporting stability and friendship. Thank you very much. Your Excellency President Emmanuel Macron, Your Excellencies, heads of states, governments, and delegates, I would like to express in the name of the League of Arab States deep appreciation to the Republic of France for this initiative and for hosting this conference that gathers the partners of Sudan to accompany it in this important transitional period it goes through. I commend the clear vision on which the state of Sudan is moving with responsibility despite all difficulties, in the way that we've listened to from Mr. Abdel Fattah el-Burhan and Dr. Abdallah Hamdouk. Deep thanks and appreciation to both of them. Our brothers in Sudan took a long stride in agreeing upon and implementing the transition period. And it is a path that all partners are committed to supporting in a way that is shown in the meetings of the group of Friends of Sudan and the partnership summit that was hosted by Berlin, in addition to the other regional initiatives, bilateral support, and international events. We are convening here today to be informed about what Sudan did up till now and to mobilize more coordinated efforts to enable Sudan to overcome the huge challenges it is facing to continue the transition period in a successful complementary manner. Let me here introduce to you a number of brief ideas about the role of the League of Arab States and its vision in this context. First, the League of Arab States remains committed to supporting and accompanying Sudan down this path based upon our main responsibility towards Sudan, that is considered to be a very important member in the League of Arab States and an effective element in the Arab system, as the League has witnessed the constitutional declaration made in August 2019. Secondly, countries and the Arab financial institutions are the first to support assistance Sudan. And the League has provided assistance to Sudan to deal with the humanitarian conditions in Darfur and to deal with the pandemic COVID-19, as well as deal with the implications of the floods that hit the country. The League is also committed to continuing this role according to the national priorities identified by Sudan itself, including the common mechanism between the League of Arab States and the Sudanese government that is studying now crystallizing a number of development projects with a value of $100 million US. Thirdly, we are commending the packages of assistance provided by partner countries and institutions to Sudan during the past period, including the loans that were provided recently to Sudan. And we are inviting today all partners to be achieving their promises and to mobilize more support to implement the national programs for the state of Sudan and its efforts to reform its economic structure, especially through finalizing the issue of writing off the debts of Sudan according to the initiative of poor countries overburdened by debts, and supporting also the family support programs and supporting other vulnerable groups and meeting the humanitarian urgent needs of Sudan and the full spread of the UN envoy according to the resolution 2524 of the Security Council in the UN. Fourth, we all welcomed the national spirit of our brothers in Sudan when they reached Juba peace agreement, and we commend the efforts of the government to involve other armed groups that did not sign the agreement in this peace process. And I'm confident that the partners of Sudan would intensify their support to implement this and to provide the financing needed for this agreement, especially to build peace and to disarm the armed groups and for the return of displaced ones, as well as accelerating recovery in countries in post-conflict areas. Fifth, we are all committed to the sovereignty of Sudan and the integrity of its territories and its national unity. So the transition process of Sudan cannot be completed if something is threatening its national security or is harming its strategic interests. Consequently, we emphasize our full solidarity with the state of Sudan in everything it is doing regarding the just measures they are undertaking to protect its sovereignty and to protect the integrity of its territories. And we renew our support to Sudan to protect its water rights, and we are inviting to reaching a legal binding agreement between Sudan and Egypt on one hand and Ethiopia regarding the operation and the filling of the Renaissance Dam, apart from the individual procedures, in a way that protects the interests of the three countries, as this would avoid as instability. Once more, President Macron, thank you. We'd like to thank also the Republic of France for this kind invitation. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. President. And after this opening session, we will take a short break. And then we will start the next session in which we are going to discuss the debts.
Egypt and France have historical relations dating